Dialogue the second. Madame de Sade.
Welcome, my pet! I have been awaiting you with an impatience you fully appreciate, if you can read the feelings I have in my heart.
Eugenie.
Oh, my precious one. I thought I should never arrive. So eager was I to find myself in your arms. An hour before leaving, I dreaded all might be changed. My mother was absolutely opposed to this delightful party, declaring it ill became a girl of my age to go abroad alone. But my father had so abused her the day before yesterday that a single one of his glances was quite enough to cause Madame Mistival to subside utterly, and it ended with her consenting to what my father had granted me, and I rushed here. I have 2 days. Your carriage and one of your servants must without fail take me home the day after tomorrow.
How short is this period, my dearest angel! In so little time I shall hardly be able to express to you all you excited me. And indeed, we have to talk. You know, do you not, that 'tis during this interview that I am to initiate you into the most secret of Venus's mysteries? Shall 2 days be time enough?
Were I not to arrive at a complete knowledge, I should remain. I came hither to be instructed, and I will not go till I am informed.
Oh, dear love, how many things are we going to do and say to one another? But, by the way, do you wish to take lunch, my queen? For the lesson may be prolonged.
I have no need, my dear friend, than to listen to you. We lunched a league from here. I'll be able to wait until 8 o'clock this evening without feeling the least hunger.
Then let's go into my boudoir, where we will be more at our ease. I have already spoken to the 2 servants. You may be certain no one shall take it into his head to interrupt us.
They enter into the boudoir, linked arm in arm. Dialogue the third. In a delightful boudoir. Eugenie.
Great God! Dearest friend! We are betrayed!
Madame de Sade.
Strange! Monsieur! To find you here! Were you not expected at 4?
Tout le monde sait. One always hastens the advent of that happiness which comes of seeing you, madame. I encountered monsieur, your brother. He anticipated the usefulness of my presence at the lessons you are to give, mademoiselle, and knew this to be the lyceum where they would be given. Unperceived, he introduced me into his chamber, far from imagining you might disapprove, and as for himself, aware his demonstrations will only be necessary after the dissertations on theory, he will not make his appearance until later.
Indeed, de Montse, this is an unforeseen turn.
By which I am not deceived, my good friend. It is all your work. At least, you should have consulted me, instead of exposing me to this shame. It will certainly prejudice all our projects.
Eugenie, I protest! My brother is responsible for this, not I. But there's no cause for alarm. I know Domonse for a most agreeable man, and he possesses just that degree of philosophic understanding we require for your enlightenment. He can be of nothing but the greatest service to our schemes. As for his discretion, I am as willing to answer for it as for my own. Therefore, dear heart, familiarize yourself with this man who in all the world is the best endowed to form you and to guide you into a career of the happiness and the pleasures we wish to taste together.
Oh, I still find all this the most upsetting.
Come, my lovely Eugenie, put yourself at ease. Modesty is an antiquated virtue which you, so rich in charms, ought to know wonderfully well how to do without.
But decency!
Ha! A Gothicism not very much defended these days. It is so hostile to nature.
That's quite enough, monsieur. Indeed, you show me very little consideration.
Eugenie, listen to me. Let's both of us cease behaving like prudes with this charming gentleman. I am not better acquainted with him than are you. Yet watch how I give myself to him. Imitate me.
Oh, most willingly. Oh, where might I find better examples?
Amiable, delicious creature!
This think, little chit, I not have my turn as well.
At that point, Domonse, holding first one in his arms and the other, tongues both, each for a quarter of an hour, and they both tongue one another and him. Ah, such preliminaries make me drunk with desire! Madames, upon my word, it is extraordinarily warm here. More lightly attired, we might converse with infinitely greater comfort.
You are right. Sit. We'll don these gauze negligees of our charms, though conceal only those that must be hidden from desire.
Indeed, dear one, you lead me to do things
completely ridiculous, isn't it? Helping Eugenie undress.
most improper, at the very least, I'd say. My, how you kiss me!
Pretty bosom! A rose only now reaching full bloom.
Domonse considers, without touching, Eugenie's breasts, and which promises yet other allurements, infinitely to be preferred.
Infinitely to be preferred?
Oh, yes. Upon my honor. Saying which, Domonse appears eager to turn Eugenie about in order to inspect her from the rear.
No, I beg of you.
No, Domonse, I don't want you yet to see. An object whose sway over you is so great that, the image of it once fixed in your head, you are unable thereafter to reason coolly. We need your lessons. First, give them to us, and afterward the myrtle you covet will be your reward.
Very well. But, in order to demonstrate, in order to give this beautiful child the first lessons of libertinage, we will be requiring willing cooperation from you, madame, in the exercise that must follow.
So be it! All right, then. Look you here. I'm entirely naked. Make your dissertations upon me as much as you please.
Lovely body! 'Tis Venus herself, embellished by the graces.
Oh, my dear friend, what charms, delights! Let me drink them in with my eyes. Let me cover them with my kisses.
What excellent predispositions! A trifle less passion, lovely Eugenie. For the moment you are only being asked to show a little attention.
Let's continue. I'm listening. But how beautiful she is. So plump. So fresh. Oh, how charming my dear friend is. Is she not, monsieur?
Beautiful. Assuredly. She is wondrous to see. But I am persuaded you yield to her in nothing. Well, now, my pretty little student, either you will pay attention to me, or beware lest, if you are not docile, I exercise over you the rights amply conferred upon me by my title as your mentor.
Oh, yes, indeed, Damasce. I shall put her into your safekeeping. She must have a severe scolding if she misbehaves.
It is very possible. I might not be able to confine myself to remonstrances.
Great heaven! You terrify me! What, then, would you do to me, monsieur?
Damasce stammers, kisses Eugenie on the mouth. Punishments! Corrections! I might very well hold this pretty little ass accountable for mistakes made by the head. He strikes the former through the gauze dressing gown in which Eugenie is presently arrayed.
Oh, yes, I approve of the project, but not of the gesture. Let's begin our lesson. Else the little time granted to us to enjoy Eugenie will be spent in preliminaries, and the instruction shall remain incomplete.
Damasce, one by one, touches the part of Madame Saint-Dange's body. I begin. I will say nothing of these fleshy globes. You know as well as I, Eugenie, that they are indifferently known as bosoms, breasts, tits. Pleasure may put them to profitable use. While amusing oneself, a lover has them continually before his eyes. He caresses them, handles them. Indeed, some lovers form of them the very seat of their pleasure, and niche their member between these twin mounts of Venus, which the woman then squeezes together, compressing this member. After a little management, certain men succeed in spreading thereupon the delicious balm of life, whose outpouring causes the whole happiness of libertines. But this member, of which we shall be obliged to speak incessantly, should we, not be well advised, madame, to give our student a lecture upon it.
Verily, I do think so.
Very well, madame. I am going to recline upon this couch. Place yourself near me. Then you will lay hands upon the subject, and you will yourself explain its properties to our young student. De Moncey lies down, and Madame de Saint-Ange demonstrates.
This scepter of Venus you have before your eyes, Eugenie, is the primary agent of love's pleasure. It is called the member. There is not a single part of the human body into which it cannot introduce itself. Always obedient to the passions of the person who wields it, sometimes it nests there. She touches Eugenie's cunt. This is the ordinary route, the one in widest use, but not the most agreeable. In pursuit of a more mysterious sanctuary, it is often here.
She spreads wide Eugenie's buttocks. It indicates the anus.
That the libertine seeks enjoyment. We will return to this most delicious pleasure of them all. There are as well the mouth, the breasts, the armpits, which provide him with further altars upon which to burn his incense. And finally, whatever be the place among all those he most prefers, after a few instants of agitation the member may be seen to vent a white and viscous liquor, whose flowing forth plunges the man into delirium intense enough to procure for him the sweetest pleasure he can hope to have in life.
How much I should like to see this liquor flow.
I need but vibrate my hand. Ooh. You see how the thing becomes irritated the more I chafe and pull on it. These movements are known as pollution, and in the language of libertinage, this action is called frigging.
Oh, please, dear friend, allow me to frig this splendid member.
Look out! I'll not be able to. Don't interfere with her, madame. This ingenuousness has got me horribly erected.
Oh, no good will come of this excitement. Be reasonable, de Moncey. Once that fluid flows, the activity of your animal spirits will be diminished, and the warmth of your dissertations will be lessened correspondingly.
Eugenie fondles de Moncey's testicles.
Ah, my dear friend, how sorry am I you resist my desires. And these balls, what might their purpose be? What are they called?
The technical term is genital. Male genitals. Testicles belong to art. The balls of the reservoir containing the abundant semen I have just mentioned, and which, expelled into the woman's matrix or womb, produces the human species. But we will not stress those details, usually, for they relate more to medicine than to libertinage. A pretty girl ought simply to concern herself with fucking, and never with engendering. No need to touch at greater length on what pertains to the dull business of population. From now on we shall address ourselves principally, nay, uniquely, to those libertine lecheries whose spirit is in no wise reproductive.
But, my dear friend, when this enormous member I can scarcely grip in my hand, when this member penetrates, as you assure me it can, into a hole as little as the one in your behind, that must cause the woman a great deal of pain.
Whether this introduction be wrought before or behind, if she is not yet accustomed to it, a woman always suffers. It has pleased nature so to make us that we attain happiness only by way of pain. But one vanquished and had this way, nothing can equal the joy one tastes upon the entrance of this member into our ass. It is a pleasure incontestably superior to any sensation procured by the same introduction in front. And, besides, how many dangers does not a woman thus avoid? Fewer risks to her health, and none at all of pregnancy. For the present, I'll say no more about this delight. Your master and mine, Eugenie, will soon award it a full analysis, and by uniting practice with theory will, I trust, convince you, my precious one, that amongst all the bedroom's pleasures, that is the only one for which you should have a preference.
I beg you to speed your demonstrations, madame. I can no longer restrain myself. Discharged despite my efforts. And this redoubtable member, reduced to nothing, will be unable to aid your lessons.
What? It would be reduced to nothing, dear heart, if it were to lose the semen you speak of. Oh, do allow me to help him lose it, so that I may see what happens to it. And besides, I should take such pleasure in seeing it flow.
No, Damanse, up with you! Remember that this is the payment of your labors, and that I'll not turn her over to you until you've merited her.
So be it. But the better to convince Eugenie of all we are going to relate concerning pleasure. Would it be in any way prejudicial to Eugenie's instruction if, for instance, you were to frig her in front of me?
Why, doubtless not, and I shall do so all the more happily since I am certain this lubricious episode will only enrich our lessons. On to the couch, my sweet.
Oh, dear God! The delicious niche! But why all these mirrors?
By repeating our attitudes and postures in 1,000 different ways, they infinitely multiply those same pleasures for the person seated here upon this ottoman. Thus, everything is visible. No part of the body can remain hidden. Everything must be seen. These images are so many groups disposed around those enchained by love, so many delicious tableaux wherewith lewdness waxes drunk, and which soon drive it to its climax.
What a marvelous invention!
Tomatse, undress the victim yourself.
That will not be difficult, since 'tis merely a question of removing this gauze in order to discern naked the most appealing features. He strips her, and his first glances are instantly directed upon her behind. And so, I am about to see this divine, this priceless ass, of which I have such ardent expectations. Oh, by God! What fullness of flesh, and what coolness, what stunning elegance! Never have I seen one lovelier.
Rascal! How clearly your initial homages betray your tastes and pleasures!
But can there be anything in the world to equal this? Where might love find a more divine altar? Eugenie, sublime Eugenie, Let me overwhelm this ass of yours with the softest caresses. He fingers and kisses it, transported.
Stop, libertine! You forget! Eugenie belongs to me only. She's to be your reward for the lessons she awaits from you. But you'll not have your recompense before she has been given those lessons. Enough of this ardor, or you'll anger me.
Scoundrel! It's your jealousy. Very well. Pass me yours, and I'll pay it a similar homage. He raises Madame de Saintonge's negligee and caresses her behind. Oh, 'tis lovely, my angel. 'Tis delicious, too. Let me compare them both. I'd see them one next to the other. Ganymede beside Venus. He lavishes kisses upon each. Mwah! In order to have the bewitching spectacle of so much beauty constantly before my eyes. Madame, could you not, by interlacing yourselves, uninterruptedly offer my gaze these charming asses I worship?
Perfectly well. There. Are you satisfied?
They intertwine their bodies in such a manner that both asses confront de Moncey. It could not be better. 'Tis precisely what I asked for. And now, agitate those superb globes with all the fire of lubricity. Let them sink and rise in cadence. Let them obey the proddings whereby pleasure is going to stir them. Oh, splendid, splendid! 'Tis delicious!
Oh, my dearest one, what pleasures you give me! What is it you call what you are doing now?
Freaking, my pet. Giving oneself pleasure. Stop a moment. We'll alter our positions. Examine. My God. This is named in the temple of Venus. Look sharply at that coin your hand covers. Examine it well. I am going to open it a little. The elevation you notice above it is called the mound, which is garnished with hair. Generally, when one reaches the age of 14 or 15, when, that is, a girl begins to have periods. Here above is a little tongue-shaped thing. That is the clitoris. And there lies all a woman's power of sensation. It is the center of all mind. It would be impossible to tickle this part of me without seeing me swoon with delight. Try it. Sweet little bitch! How well you do it! What do you think you've done nothing else in your life? No, stop! No, I tell you, no. I do not wish to surrender myself. Oh, dumb monster, stop me. Under the enchanted fingers of this pretty child, I am about to go out of my mind.
You might be able to lower the temperature of your ideas by varying them. Frig her in your turn. Keep a grip on yourself, and let her go to work. There. Yes. In this position. In this manner, her pretty little ass is between my hands. I'll pollute it ever so slightly with a finger. Let yourself go, Eugenie. Abandon all your senses to pleasure. Let it be the one object, the one god of your existence. It is to this god a girl ought to sacrifice everything, and in her eyes nothing must be as holy as pleasure.
Nothing in the world is so delightful. I do feel that I am beside myself. I no longer know what I am saying, or what I am doing. What a drunkenness steals through all my being.
Look at the little rascal discharge and squeeze! Her anus nearly ripped off the end of my finger. How splendid it would be to bugger her at such a moment!
He stands and claps his prick to the girl's ass.
Yet another moment's patience. The dear girl's education must be our sole occupation. How pleasant it is to enlighten her!
Well then, Eugenie, you observe that after a more or less prolonged pollution, the seminal glands swell, enlarge, and finally exhale a liquid whose release hurls the women into the most extensive rapture. This is known as discharging. When it pleases your good friend here, I'll show you, but in a more energetic and imperious manner, how the same operation occurs in a man.
Well, Eugenie, now I'm going to teach you a new way to drown a woman in joy. Spread your thighs. Don't mind say, you see how I'm adjusting her. Her ass is all yours. Okay, you stick it here while my tongue licks her cunt, and between the two of us, let's see if we can get her to swoon 3 or 4 times. Oh, your little mouth is charming, Eugenie. How I adore kissing this downy flesh. I see your clitoris more clearly now. 'Tis but somewhat formed, yet most sensitive. Ooh, how you do quiver and squirm. Let me spread you. Oh, you're a virgin indeed. Describe what you feel when our 2 tongues wrong at once into your 2 apertures.
I do as I have said.
Oh, oh, my dear, it thrills me so. It is a sensation impossible to depict. I'd be hard put to say which of your tongues plunges me further into my delirium. Ah!
In this posture, madame, my prick is well within your reach. Condescend to frigate, I beg of you, or I suck this heavenly ass. Thrust your tongue yet further, madame. Don't be content to suck. Make your voluptuous tongue penetrate into her womb. 'Tis the surest way to hasten the process.
I can't bear it anymore. I'm dying. Don't abandon me, dear friends. I am about to swoon.
She discharges between her 2 initiators.
Well, my pet, what do you think of the pleasure we have given you?
I am dead. Exhausted. But I beg you to explain 2 words you pronounced, and which I do not understand. First of all, what does womb signify?
Well, 'tis a kind of vessel, much resembling a bottle, whose neck embraces the male's member, and which receives the fuck produced in the woman by glandular seepage, and in the man by the ejaculation we will exhibit for you. And of the commingling of these liquors is born the germ whereof result now boys and now girls.
Oh, I see. This definition simultaneously explains the word fuck, whose meaning I did not thoroughly grasp until now. And is the union of the seeds necessary to the formation of the fetus?
Assuredly, although it is proven that the fetus owes its existence only to the man's sperm, this latter, by itself, unmixed with the woman's, would come to naught. But that which we women furnish has a merely elaborative function. It does not create. It further creation without being its cause. Indeed, there are several contemporary naturalists who claim it is useless, whence the moralists, always guided by science's discoveries, have decided, and the conclusion have a degree of possibility that, such being the case, a child born of the father's blood owes filial tenderness to him alone. An assertion not without its appealing qualities, and one which, even though a woman, I should be inclined to contest.
It is in my heart. I find confirmation of what you tell me, my dear. For I love my father to distraction, and I feel a loathing for my mother.
But there is nothing unusual about that predilection. I have always thought as you. I still lament my father's death. When I lost my mother, I lit a perfect bonfire from joy. I detested her. Be unafraid, Eugenie, and adopt these same sentiments. They are natural, uniquely formed of our sire's blood. We owe absolutely nothing to our mothers. What, furthermore, did they do but cooperate in the act which our fathers, on the contrary, solicited? Thus, it was the father who desired our birth, whereas the mother merely consented thereto. As regards sentiment, what a difference!
Yet 1,000 more reasons in your favor, Eugenie. If it is a mother still alive, if in all the world there is a mother who ought to be aboard, she is certainly yours. Superstitious, pious, a shrew, a scold. And what with her revolting prudery? I dare wager the fool has never in her life committed a faux pas. Oh, my dear, how I hate virtuous women! But we'll return to that question.
And now would it not be fitting for Eugenie, directed by me, to learn to pay back what you have just done in her behalf? I think she might frig you before me.
I applaud the suggestion, and while she frigs me, would not you, Delmont, say, relish the sight of my ass?
Are you able to doubt, madame, of the pleasure with which I will render it my gentlest homages? Madame de Sade presents her buttocks to him.
Do you find me suitable thus?
Wonderfully! I should never find a better manner to render you all the services Eugenie found so enormously to her liking. And now, my little wild cat, station yourself for a moment between your friend's legs. So, and with that pretty little tongue of yours, care for her as she has for you. Why, bless me, this way I shall be able to manage both your asses. How fondle Eugenie's while sucking her lovely friends. How admirable, how agreeably we are all together.
Oh, how happy I am to be its cause! But, dear friend, you have just uttered another unfamiliar word. What do you understand this expression whore to mean? Forgive me, but you know I am here to learn.
My most lovely one, in such wise are called the public victims of the debauchery of men, creatures prepared at all times to surrender their persons, whether from temperaments or for reward. Happy and deserving creatures, common in pity to sales, but whom license crowns, and who, far more necessary to the society which they strive to serve than as prudes, forego the esteem that unjust society denies them. All hail to those in whose eyes this title is an honor. Such are truly lovable women, the only authentic philosophers. As for myself, dear heart, I, who for 12 years have endeavored to merit the laurel, I assure you that if I do not work as a whore, I always play as one. Better still, I love thus to be named when I am fucked. 'Tis a vilification that fires my brain.
My dear, I fancy I, too, should not be sorry to be called a whore. Though 'tis true I scarcely merit the name, but is not virtue opposed to such misconduct, and does not it reproach us for behaving as we do?
Ah, Eugenie, have done with virtues! Among the sacrifices that can be made to those counterfeit divinities, is there one worth an instant of the pleasures one tastes in outraging them? Come, my sweet, virtue is but a chimera, whose worship consists exclusively in perpetual immolations and unnumbered rebellions against the temperament's inspirations. Can such impulses be natural? Does nature recommend what offends her? Eugene, be not the dupe of those women you have called virtuous. Theirs are not, if you wish, the same passions as yours, but they hearken to others, and often more contemptible. There is ambition, there pride, there you find self-seeking, and often, again, it is a question of mere situational numbness, of torpor. There are beings who have no urges. Are we, I ask, to revere such as them? No, the virtuous woman acts, or is inactive, from pure selfishness. Is it then better, wiser, more just to perform sacrifices to egoism than to one's passions? As for me, I believe the one is far worthier than the other, and who heeds but this latter voice is far better advised, no question of it, since it only is the organ of nature, while the former is simply that of stupidity and prejudice. One single drop of fuck shed from this member, Eugenie, is more precious to me than the most sublime deeds of a virtue I scorn.
Calm being to some degree re-established during these expositions, the women, clad again in their negligee, and reclining upon a couch, with de Mansé seated in an armchair close by. Eugenie.
But there is more than one species of virtue. What think you, for example, pity?
What can it be for whosoever has no belief in religion, and who is able to have religious beliefs? Come now, Eugenie, let's reason systematically. Do you not call religion the pact that binds man to his Creator, and which obliges him to give his Creator evidence, by means of worship, of his gratitude for the existence received from this sublime author?
It could not be better defined.
Excellent! If it is demonstrated that man owes his existence to nothing but nature's irresistible schemes, if man is thus proven as ancient in this world as is ancient the globe itself, he is but as the oak, as grain, as the minerals to be found in the earth's entrails, who are bound only to reproduce, reproduction being necessitated by the globe's existence, which owes its own to nothing whatsoever. If it is demonstrated that this God, whom fools behold as the author and maker of all we know there to be, is simply the ne plus ultra of human reason, merely the phantom created at this moment, the reason can advance its operations no further. If it is proven that this God's existence is impossible, and that nature, forever in action, forever moving, has of herself what it pleases idiots to award God gratuitously, if it is certain that this inert being's existence, once supposed, he would be of all things the most ridiculous, since he would have been useful only one single time, and thereafter and throughout millions of centuries, fixed in a contemptible stillness and inactivity, that, supposing him to exist as religions portray him to us, this would be the most detestable of creatures, since it would be God who permits evil to be on this earth while his omnipotence could prevent it. If, I say, all that is admitted to be proven, as incontestably it is, do you believe, Eugenie, that it is a very necessary virtue, this piety, which binds man to an idiotic, insufficient, atrocious, and contemptible creator?
What? Then you mean to say, my dear friend, God's existence is an illusion?
And without a doubt, one of the most deplorable. To believe therein, one must first have gone out of one's mind, fruit of the terror of some, and of the frailty of others. That abominable phantom, Eugenie, is of no use to the terrestrial scheme, and would infallibly be injurious to it, since the will of God would have to be just, and should never be able to ally itself to the essential injustices decreed by nature, since he would constantly have to will the good, while nature must desire it only as compensation for the evil which serves her laws, since it would be necessary that he, God, exert his influence at all times, while nature, one of whose laws is this perpetual activity, could only find herself in competition with and unceasing opposition to him. Am I to hear in reply that God and nature are one? 'Tis an absurdity. The thing created cannot be the creative being's equal. Might the pocket watch be the watchmaker? Very well, then. They will continue. Nature is nothing. It is God who is all. Another stupidity! There are necessarily two things in the universe, the creative agent and the being created. Now, to identify this creative agent is a single task before us, the one question to which one has got to provide a reply. If matter acts, is moved by combinations unknown to us, if movement is inherent in nature, if, in short, she alone, by reason of her energy, is able to create, produce, preserve, maintain, hold in equilibrium within the immense plains of space all the spheres that stand before our gaze, and whose uniform march, unvarying, fills us with awe and admiration, what then becomes of the need to seek out a foreign agent, since this active faculty essentially is to be found in nature herself, who is naught else than matter in action? Do you suppose your deific chimera will shed light upon anything? I defy anyone to prove him to me. It being supposed that I am mistaken upon matter's internal faculties, I have before me, at least, nothing worse than a difficulty. What do you do for me when you offer your god to me? Nothing, but offering one more god. And how would you have me acknowledge as cause of what I do not understand something that I understand even less? Will it be by means of the Christian religion that I shall examine, that I shall obtain a view of your appalling God? Then let us cast a glance upon the God Christianity propounds. What do I see in the God of that infamous sect, if not an inconsistent and barbarous being? Today, the creator of the world of destruction, he repents of tomorrow. What do I see there but a frail being forever unable to bring man to heel and force him to bend a knee? This creature, although emanated from him, dominates him, knows how to offend him, and thereby merits torments eternally. What a weak fellow, this God! How able he was to mold all that we know, and to fail to form man in his own guise! Whereunto you will answer, that had man been created so, man would have been little deserving of his author. What a platitude this is! And what necessity is there that man be deserving of his God? Had man been formed wholly good, man should never have been able to do evil, and only then would the work be worthy of a god. To allow man to choose was to tempt him, and God's infinite powers very well advised him of what would be the result. Immediately the being was created, it was hence to pleasure that God doomed the creature he had himself formed. A horrible God, this God of yours, a monster! Is there a criminal more worthy of our hatred and our implacable vengeance than he? However, little content with a task so sublimely executed, he drowns man to convert him. He burns him. He curses him. Nothing in all that alters man one jot. More powerful than this villainous God, a being still in possession of his power, forever able to brave his author, the devil by his seductions incessantly succeeds in leading astray the flock that the Eternal has reserved unto himself. Nothing can vanquish the hold this demon's energy has upon us. But picture in your own terms the frightful God you preach. He has but one son, an only son, begot of some strange passing commerce. For, as man doth fuck, so he hath will that his Lord fucketh too. And the Lord didst detach and send down out of heaven this respectable part of himself. One perhaps imagine that it is upon celestial rays, in the midst of an angelic cortege, within sight of all the universe, this sublime creature is going to appear. Not at all. 'Tis upon a Jewish whore's breast. 'Tis in a proper pigsty that there is announced the God who has come to save the earth. Behold the worthy extraction accorded this personage! But his mission is honorable. Will he disabuse us? Let us have a close look at him for an instant. What does he say? What is it he does? What is his sublime mission? What mystery is he about to reveal? What is the dogma he is going to prescribe for us? When will be the act wherein at last his grandeur will shine? I see. First of all, in obscure childhood, a few doubtless very libertine services this smutty fellow renders the priest at the temple of Jerusalem. Next, a 15 years' disappearance, during which the scoundrel goes to poison himself with all the reveries of the Egyptian school, which at length he fetches back to Judea. Scarcely does he reappear when his ravings begin. He says he is the son of God, his father's peer. To this alliance he joins another phantom he calls the Holy Ghost. And these 3 persons, he swears, must be but one. The more this preposterous mystery amazes the reason, the more the low fellow declares there is merit in swallowing it, and danger in refusing it. It is to save us one and all, the imbecile argues, that he has assumed a fleshly shape, although he is God, mortally incarnate in the breast of the child of man, and the glittering wonders one is about to see him perform will speedily convince all the world of it. During a ribald supper, indeed, the cheat transforms, so they say, water into wine. In a desert, he feeds a few bandits upon the victuals previously hidden there by his devoted confederates. One of his cronies plays dead. Our impostor restores him to life again. He betakes himself to a mountain, and there, before 2 or 3 of his friends only, he brings off a jugglery that would cause the worst among our contemporary mountebanks to redden with shame. Roundly damning, moreover, all those who do not accredit him, the scoundrel promises the heaven to whatever fools will listen. He writes nothing, for he is ignorant, talks very little, for he is stupid, does even less, for he is weak. And, finally, completely exhausting the patience of the magistrates with his seditious outbursts, the charlatan has himself fixed to the cross, after having assured the rogues who follow him that, every time they invoke him, he will descend to them to get himself eaten. He is put to torture. He puts up with it. Monsieur his papa, that sublime God whence he dares affirm he descends, succours him not in the least. And there you have him, this scoundrel, used like the last of the outlaws of whom he was such a fitting chief. His henchmen assemble. It's all up to us, they say, and all our hopes are perished, lest we save ourselves with a quick piece of cunning. We'll besought the gods set over to watch over Jesus, and then make off with his body. Bruit it abroad he is risen. The trick's sure. If we manage to get this knavery believed, our new religion's founded, propagated, it'll seduce the world. To work! The blow is struck. It succeeds. And how many blackguards has not boldness occupied the place of merit? The corpse is filched. Fools, women, children bawl out miracle at the top of their lungs. Nevertheless, in this city, where such great prodigies have been wrought, in the city stained with a god's blood, no one cares to believe in this God. Not a single conversion is operated there. Better yet, so little worthy of transmission is the event that no historian alludes to it. Only this impostor's disciples think they have something to gain from this fraud, but not at the hour. This detail is crucial. Let's note it well. They permit several years to pass before exploiting their artifice. At length they erect upon it the shaky edifice of their unwholesome doctrine. Men are pleased by any novelty. Weary of the emperor's despotism, the world agrees to the need for a revolution. These cheats are heard. They make a very rapid progress. 'Tis the story of every era. Soon the altars of Venus and Mars are changed to those of Jesus and Mary. The life of the impostor is published. The insipid fiction finds its dupes. He is represented as having said 100 things which never came into his head. Some few of his own drivellings instantly become the basis of his morality, and as this romance is preached to the poor, charity becomes its foremost virtue. Weird rites are instituted under the name of sacraments. The most offensive and the most abominable of them all is the one whereby a priest, covered with crimes, has, notwithstanding, thanks to a few magical words, the power to bring God back in a morsel of bread. Let there be no mistake. At its very birth, this shameful cult might have been utterly destroyed had one but employed against it those weapons of the contempt it deserved. But men took it into their heads to employ persecution. The cult throve. 'Twas inevitable. Even today, were one to cover it with ridicule, it would fall. The adroit Voltaire never used any other arm, and among all writers he is the one who may congratulate himself upon having the greatest number of proselytes. Such, in a few words, Eugenie, is the history of God and of religion. Consider the treatment these fables deserve, and adopt a determined attitude toward them.
My choice is unperplexed. I scorn the lot of these unhealthy reveries, and this God himself, to whom I lately clove, through weakness or through ignorance, is henceforth nothing for me but an object of horror.
Swear to me you think no more of him, never to be concerned for him, never to invoke him at any moment of your life, and so long the breath be in you, never to return to him.
Eugenie flings herself upon Madame de Saint-Ange's breast.
I pledge it in your arms. How readily I see what you demand is for my own good, and that you would never have such reminiscences disturb my tranquillity.
What other motive could I have?
But, Domancé, it seems to me that it was the analysis of virtues that led us to the examination of religions. Let us now return to the former. Might there not exist in this religion, completely ridiculous though it is, some virtues prescribed by it, whose cultivation could contribute to our happiness?
All right, let us see. Shall chastity be that virtue your own eyes destroy, Eugenie, although you and all about you are the very image of it? Are you going to respect the obligation to combat all nature's operations? Will you sacrifice them all to the vain and ludicrous honor of never having had a weakness? Be fair, and answer me, pretty little friend. Think you to find in this absurd and dangerous purity of soul the pleasures of the contrary vice?
No. No. I'm bound to declare, I see nothing there. I do not feel the least inclination to be chaste, but rather the most compelling urge to the opposite vice. But, Domancé, might not charity and benevolence bring happiness to some sensitive souls?
Begone those virtues which produce naught but ingratitude! But, my charming friend, be not at all deceived. Benevolence is surely rather pride's vice than authentic virtue in the soul. Never is it with the single intention of performing a good act, but instead ostentatiously that one aids one's fellow man. One would be most annoyed were the alms one has just bestowed not to receive the utmost possible publicity. Nor, Eugenie, are you to imagine that, as is the popular view, this action has only excellent consequences. For my part, I behold it as nothing other than the greatest of all duperies. It accustoms the poor man to doles which provoke the deterioration of his energy. When able to expect your charities, he ceases to work, and becomes, when they fail him, a thief or assassin. On all sides I hear them ask after the means to suppress mendacity, and meanwhile they do everything possible to encourage it. Would you have no flies in your bedchamber? Don't spread about sugar to attract them into it. You wish to have no poor in France? Distribute no alms, and above all, shut down your poor houses. The individual born in misfortune, thereupon seeing himself deprived of these dangerous crutches, will fend for himself, summoning up all the resources put in him by nature, to extricate himself from the condition wherein he started life. And he will importune you no longer. Destroy, with entire unpity, raze to the ground those detestable houses where you billet the progeny of the libertinage of the poor. Appalling Cloacus, wherefrom there every day spews forth into a society a swarm of new-made creatures, whose unique hope resides in your purse. What purpose, I ask, is there in preserving such individuals with so much care? Does anyone fear France's depopulation? Ha! Dread not. One of the foremost of this nation's defects consists in a population by far too numerous, and much is wanting when such overabundances become considered the state's riches. These supernumerary beings are like unto the parasitical branches which, living only at the trunk's expense, always bring it to final decline. Remember that in no matter what political organization, whenever the size of the population exceeds what is strictly necessary to its existence, that society languishes. Examine France well, and you will observe that to be her situation. What results of it? 'Tis clear. The Chinese, wiser than we, are more careful to avoid the perils of excessive numbers. No asylum for the shameful fruit of debauchery. It is not preserved, it is abandoned, just as are the aftermaths of digestion. No establishments for poverty. Such a thing is totally unknown in China. There, everyone works. There, everyone is happy. Nothing saps the poor man's energy, and everyone can say, as did Nero, quid est, pauper?
Beloved friend, my father thinks exactly as Monsieur de Moncey. Never in his life has he performed a good work, and he is continually abusing my mother for the money she spends in such practices. She belonged to the maternal society, to the philanthropic club. I have no idea of what association she is not a member. He obliged her to stop all that by promising her he would reduce her to the narrowest pension were she to relapse into similar follies.
There is nothing more ludicrous, and at the same time more dangerous, usually, than all these sodalities. It is up to them, to free public schools, and to charitable establishments we owe the terrible disorder in which we presently live. Never give alms, my dear, I beseech you.
Nothing to fear on that score. It was long ago my father put me under the same obligation, and I am too little tempted to benevolence to disregard his orders. My heart's impulses and your desires.
Nature has endowed each of us with a capacity for kindly feelings. Let us not squander them on others. What to me are the woes that beset others? Have I not enough of my own without afflicting myself with those that are foreign to me? May our sensibility's hearth warm not but our pleasures. Let us feel when it is to our advantage, and when it is not. Let us be absolutely unbending. From this exact economy of feeling, from this judicious use of sensibility, there results a kind of cruelty, which is sometimes not without its delights. One cannot always do evil. Deprived of the pleasure it affords, we can at least find the sensations equivalent in the minor but piquant wickedness of never doing good.
Dear God, how your discourses inflame me! I believe I would now sooner suffer death than be made to perform a good act.
And were the opportunity presented to do an evil one, would you be ready to commit it?
Be still, temptress. I'll not answer that until you have completed my instruction. In the light of all you tell me, it seems, Thomas, that there is nothing on earth as indifferent as the committing of good or evil. Ought not our tastes, our temperament, alone counsel us?
Ah, be in no doubt of it, Eugenie. These words vice and virtue contain for us naught but local ideas. There is no deed, in whatever the unusual form you may imagine it, which is really criminal. None which may be really called virtuous. All is relative to our manners and the climate we inhabit. What is a crime here is often a virtue several hundred leagues hence, and the virtues of another hemisphere might well reverse themselves into crimes in their own. There is no horror that has not been consecrated somewhere, and no virtue that has not been blasted. When geography alone decides whether an action be worthy of praise or blame, we cannot attach any great importance to ridiculous and frivolous sentiments, but rather should be impeccably armed against them, to the point, indeed, where we fearlessly prefer the scorn of men if the actions which excite it are for us sources of even the mildest voluptuousness.
So, but it would, however, appear to me that there must be actions in themselves so dangerous and so evil that they have come to be considered from one end of the earth to the other as generally criminal.
There are none, my love, none. Not even theft, nor incest, and neither murder nor parricide itself.
What? Such horrors are somewhere tolerated?
They have been honored, crowned, beheld as exemplary deeds, whereas in other places humaneness, candor, benevolence, chastity, in brief, all our virtues have been regarded as monstrosities.
I would have you explain that to me. I ask for a succinct analysis of each one of those crimes. But I beg you to begin by exposing your opinions upon libertinage in young girls, then upon the adultery of married women.
Listen to me, Eugenie. It is absurd to say that immediately a girl is weaned, she must continue the victim of her parents' will in order to remain thus to her dying day. It is not in this age of preoccupation with the rights of man and general concern for liberties that girls ought to continue to believe themselves their family's slaves, when it is clearly established that these families' power over them is totally illusory. Let us consult nature upon so interesting a question as this, and may the laws that govern animals, in much stricter conformance with nature, provide us for a moment with examples. Amongst beasts, do paternal duties extend beyond primary physical needs? Do not the offspring of animals possess all their parents' liberties, all their rights? As soon as they are able to walk alone and feed themselves, beginning at this instant, are they no longer recognized by the authors of their days? And do the young fancy themselves in any sense beholden to those whence they have received breath? Surely not. By what right, hence, are other duties incumbent upon the children of men? And what is the basis of these duties, if not the father's greed or ambition? Well, I ask if it is just that a young girl who is beginning to feel and reason be submitted to such constraints. Is it not prejudice which all unaided forges those chains? And is there anything more ridiculous than to see a maiden of 15 or 16 consumed by desire she is compelled to suppress? Wait, and while waiting, endure worse than hell's torments, until it pleases her parents, having first rendered her youth miserable, further to sacrifice her riper years by immolating them to their perfidious cupidity when they associate her, despite her wishes, with a husband who either has nothing wherewith to make himself loved, or who possesses everything to make himself hated. Ah, no, Eugenie. Such bonds are quickly dissolved. It is necessary that when once she reaches the age of reason, the girl be detached from the paternal household. And, after having received a public education, it is necessary that at the age of 15 she be left to her own mistress, to become what she wishes. She will be delivered unto vice? Ha! What does that matter? Are not the services a young girl renders in consenting to procure the happiness of all who apply to her infinitely more important than those which, isolating herself, she performs for her husband? Woman's destiny is to be wanton, like the bitch, the she-wolf. She must belong to all who claim her. Clearly, it is to outrage the fate nature imposes upon women to fetter themselves by the absurd ties of a solitary marriage. Let us hope eyes will be opened, and that while we go about assuring the liberty of every individual, the fate of unhappy girls will not be overlooked. But should they have the great misfortune to be forgotten, then, of their own accord, rising above usage and prejudice, let them boldly fling off and spurn the shameful irons wherewith others presume to keep them subjugated. They will rapidly conquer custom and opinion. Man become wiser, because he will be freer. Will sense the injustice that would exist in scorning whoever acts thus, and will sense, too, that the act of yielding to nature's promptings, beheld as a crime by a captive people, can be so no longer amongst a free people. Begin, therefore, with the legitimacy of these principles, Eugenie, and break your shackles at no matter what the cost. Be contemptuous of the futile remonstrances of an imbecile mother to whom you legitimately owe only hatred and a curse. If your father, who is a libertine, desires you, why then, go marry to him. Let him enjoy you, but enjoy without enchaining you. Cast off the yoke if he wishes to enslave you. More than one daughter has thus treated her father. Fuck! In one word, fuck! 'Twas for that you were brought into the world. No limits to your pleasures save those of your strength and will. No exceptions as to place, to time, to partner, all the time, everywhere. Every man has got to serve your pleasures. Continence is an impossible virtue for which nature, her rights violated, instantly punishes us with 1,000 miseries. So long as the laws remain such as they are today, employ some discretion. Loud opinion forces us to do so. But in privacy and silence, let us compensate ourselves for that cruel chastity we are obliged to display in public. Let our young maiden strive to procure herself a companion who, unattached and abroad in the world, can secretly cause her to taste the world's pleasures. Failing of that, let her contrive to seduce the Arguses posted round her. Let her beg them to prostitute her, and promise them all the money in the world they can earn from her sale. Either those watchdogs alone, or the women they will find, and whom one calls procuresses, will soon supply the little one's wants. And let her kick up the dust into the eyes of everyone at hand, brothers, cousins, friends, parents. Let her give herself to everyone, if that is necessary, to hide her conduct. Let her even make the sacrifice, if 'tis required of her tastes and affections. One intrigue which might displease her, and into which she would enter only for reasons of policy, will straightway lead her to another more agreeable, and there she is, launched. But let her not revert to her childhood prejudices, menaces, exhortations, duties, virtues, religion, and vice. Let her give not a damn for the one or the lot of them. Let her stubbornly reject and despise all that which but tends to her re-entry into thraldom, and all that which, in a word, does not hie her along the road to the depths of impudicity. 'Tis but folly in our parents when they forestall the disasters of a libertine career. There are thorns everywhere, but along the path of vice roses bloom above them. Nature causes none to smile along virtue's muddy track. Upon the former of the routes, the one snare to men to fear is men's opinion. But what mettlesome girl with a little reflection will not render herself superior to that contemptible opinion? The pleasures received through esteem, Eugenie, are nothing but moral pleasures, acceptable but to none but certain minds. Those of fuckery please all, and their winning characteristics should eclipse the hallucinatory scorn from which escape is difficult when one flouts the public's views, and which several cool-headed women have so much laughed as therefrom to derive one pleasure the more. Fuck, Eugenie! Fuck, my angel! Your body is your own, yours alone. In all the world there is but yourself who has the right to enjoy it as you see fit. Profit from the fairest period in your life. These golden years of our pleasure are only too few and too brief. If we are so fortunate as to have enjoyed them, delicious memories console and amuse us in our old age. These years lost, and we are racked by bitterest regrets. Gnawing remorse conjoins with the sufferings of age, and the fatal onset of the grave's all tears and brambles. But have you the madness to hope for immortality? Why, then, 'tis by fucking, my dear, you will remain in human memory. The Lucretias were soon forgot, whereas the Theodoras and the Messalinas are subjects for life's sweetest and most frequent conversation. How, Eugenie, may one not elect an alternative which twines in our hair the flowers of this world, and yet leaves us the hope of reverence when we are gone out of it? How, I say, may one not prefer this course to another which, causing us stupidly to vegetate upon earth, promises us nothing after our existence but scorn and oblivion?
Oh, my love, how these seductive words inflame my mind and captivate my soul! I am in a state hardly to be painted. And, I pray, will you be able to acquaint me with some of these women who will, if I tell them to, prostitute me?
For the moment, and until you have become more experienced, the matter is entirely my concern, Eugenie. Trust me, and above all the precautions I am taking to mask your excesses. My brother, and this solid friend instructing you, will be the first to whom I wish you to give yourself. Afterward, we will discover others. Be not disturbed, dear heart. I shall have you fly from one pleasure to the next. I'll plunge you in a sea of delights. I will fill your cup to overflowing, my angel. I will sate you.
Eugenie throws herself into Madame de Saint Ange's arms.
Oh, my dearest one, I adore you. You will never have a more submissive scholar. But it seems to me that you gave me to understand in our earlier conversations that it were a difficult thing for a young person to fling herself into libertinage without the husband she is to wed perceiving it later on.
'Tis true, my heart, but there are secrets which heal those breaches. I promise to make them known to you, and then, had you fucked like Antoinette, I charge myself to render you as much a virgin as you were the day you were born.
Oh, my delightful one, come, continue to construct me. Be quick, then, teach me what should be the woman's conduct in marriage.
In whatever circumstances, a woman, my dear, whether unwedded, wife or widow, must never have for objective occupation or desire anything save to have herself fucked from morning to night. 'Tis for this unique end nature created her. But if, in order to answer this intention, I require her to trample upon all the prejudices of her childhood, if I prescribe to her the most formal disobedience to her family's orders, the most arrant contempt for all her relatives' advice, you will agree with me, Eugenie, that amongst all the bonds to be burst, I ought very surely to recommend that the first be those of wedlock. Indeed, Eugenie, consider the young girl scarcely out of her father's house, on her pension, knowing nothing, without experience. Of a sudden she is obliged to pass thence into the arms of a man she has never seen. She is called to the altar, and compelled to swear to this man an oath of obedience and of fidelity. The more unjust for her, often having nothing in the depths of her heart but the greatest desire to break her word. In all the world, is there a more terrible fate than this, Eugenie? However, whether a husband pleases her or no, whether or not she has tenderness in store for her or vile treatment, behold, she is married. Her honor binds her to her oaths. It is tainted if she disregards them. She must be doomed or shackled. Either way, she must perish of despair. Oh, no, Eugenie, no. 'Tis not for that end we are born. Those absurd laws are the handiwork of men, and we must not submit to them. And divorce? Is it capable of satisfying us? Probably not. What greater assurance have we of finding the happiness in a later bondage that eluded us in an earlier. Therefore, in secrecy, let us compensate ourselves for all the restraint imposed by such absurd unions, and let us be certain indeed that this species of disorder, to whatever extreme we carry them, far from outraging nature, is but a sincere homage we render her. It is to obey her laws, to cede to the desires she alone has placed in us. It is only in resisting that we affront her. The adultery men deem a crime, which they have dared to punish in us even with death. Adultery, Eugenie, has nothing but an acquittance, sanctioned by a natural law the whims of those tyrants shall never be able to abrogate. But is it not horrible, say our husbands, to lay us open to cherishing as our own children, to embracing on ours the fruit of your licentiousness? The objection is Rousseau's. It is, I admit, the only faintly specious one wherewith adultery may be opposed. Well, is it not extremely simple to surrender oneself to libertinage without fear of pregnancy? Is it not easier yet to check it if through our oversight or imprudence it should occur? But, as we shall return to the subject, let's now but treat the heart of the matter. We will see that, however plausible it at first appears, the argument is chimerical nevertheless. First, provided I sleep with my husband, provided his semen flows to the depths of my womb, should I see 10 men at the same time I consort with him, nothing will ever be able to prove to him that the child I bear does not belong to him. It is quite as likely the child is his as not. And in a case of uncertainty, he cannot justifiably disclaim his part in bringing about something which may perhaps have been all his doing. Immediately, it can be his. It is his. Any man who vexes himself with suspicions upon his head seeks vexations. Even were his wife a Vestal, he would plague himself with worries, for it is impossible to be sure of a woman, and she who has behaved well for years may some day interrupt her good behavior. Hence, if this husband is suspicious, he will be so in any case. Never, then, will he be convinced the child he embraces is really his own. Now, if he can be suspicious in any case, there can be no disadvantage in sometimes justifying his suspicions. With regards his state of happiness or unhappiness, it will all be one. Therefore, 'tis just as well things be thus. Well, suppose him in complete error. Picture him caressing the fruit of his wife's libertinage. Where is the crime in that? Are not our goods held in common? In which case, what ill do I cause by introducing into the menage a child to whom must be accorded a share of these goods? 'Twill be my share the child will have. He'll steal nothing from my tender mate. I consider as a levy upon my dowry this portion to which the child will be heir. Hence, neither it nor I take anything from my husband. Had this child been his, by what title would it have been a claimant to a part of my chattels and monies? Is it not by reason of the fact that the child would have been my offspring? Very well, this child is going to inherit this part. Rightfully the child's by virtue of the same intimate alliance. It is because this child belongs to me that I owe it a share of my wealth. With what are you to reproach me? The child is provided for. But you deceive your husband. Thus to be false is atrocious. No, it's tit for tat, say I. And there's an end to it. I was the dupe in the first place of the attachments he forced upon me. I take my revenge. What could be more simple? But your husband's honor has suffered a real outrage. What ludicrous notion is this? My libertinage in no wise affects my husband. Mine are personal faults. This alleged dishonor signified something a century ago. We're rid of our illusions today. And my husband is no more sullied by my debauches than I might be by his. I might fuck with the whole wide world without wounding him in the slightest. This so-called hurt is therefore a mere fable, whose authentic existence is impossible. Of the two things, one, either my husband is a brutal, a jealous man, or he is a delicate one. In the former hypothesis, the best course for me is to avenge myself for his conduct. In the latter, I should be unable to grieve him. The fact I am tasting pleasures will make him happy if he is honest. No man of refinement fails to relish the spectacle of the happiness of the person he adores. But were you to love him, would you wish him to do the same? Woe unto the wife who decides to be jealous of her husband. Let her be content with what he gives her, if she loves him, but let her make no attempt to constrain him. Not only will she have no success, but she will soon make herself detested. So long as I am reasonable, I shall never be afflicted by my husband's debauches. Let him be thus with me, and peace will reign in the house. Oh. Let us recapitulate. Whatever be adultery's issue, were it even to introduce into the home children who do not belong to the husband, because they are the wife's, they have certain rights to a portion of the wife's dowry. If the husband has intelligence of the thing, he must consider them as he would children his wife might have had by an earlier marriage. If he knows nothing, he'll not though be the worse for it, for one cannot be distressed by what one is unaware of. If the adultery is followed by no consequences, and if it remain unknown to the husband, no jurist can prove, in this case, the existence of crime. Here, adultery appears as an act of perfect indifference to the husband, who knows nothing of it, and perfectly splendid for the wife, whom it delights. If the husband discovers the adultery, 'tis no longer the adultery which is an evil, for it was not such a moment ago, and it could not have altered its nature. If evil there be, it is in the husband's discovery of it. Well, that fault belongs only to him. It has nothing to do with his wife. Those who in former times punished the adulterer were hence mere hangmen, tyrannical and jealous, who, viewing everything subjectively, unjustly imagined that in order to be criminal it was only necessary to offend them. As if a personal injury were always to be considered a crime, and as if one might justly describe as a crime an act which, far from outraging nature or society, clearly serves the one and the other. There are, however, cases when adultery, easy to prove, becomes more embarrassing for the woman without, for that reason, being any more criminal. Witness, for example, the case wherein the husband is found either impotent or subject to inclinations disfavorable to engendering. As she is susceptible of pleasure, and as her husband never is, her deportment, doubtless, then becomes more open. But ought she be disquieted on that account? Surely not. The one precaution she must take is to produce no children, or to have an abortion if these precautions should happen to fail her. If it is thanks to her husband's unseemly penchants that she is compelled to compensate herself for his neglect, she has, first of all, to satisfy him, without repugnance and according to his tastes, of whatever character they may chance to be. Next, let her make it known to him that such complacencies entitle her to a counterpart. Let her demand an entire liberty in return for the one she accords. Thereupon, the husband refuses, or else he consents. If he consents, as has mine, one puts oneself at his disposal and redoubles one's ministrations and condescensions to his caprices. If he refuses, then one perfects one's concealments, and one fucks peacefully in their shadow. Is he impotent? Why, then one parts company. But, whatever may be the case, one gives oneself. One fucks, my lamb, the particular situation notwithstanding, because we are born to fuck. Because by fucking we obey and fulfill nature's ordinations. And because all man-made laws which would contravene nature's are made for naught but are contempt. A silly gull is the woman who ties, as absurd as those of wedlock inhibit from surrendering to her penchants, who dreads either pregnancy or the injury of her husband, or the yet more vain tarnishing of her reputation. You have just seen, Eugenie. Yes, you have just sensed what a dupe she is when she immolates both her happiness and all life's joys to the most preposterous prejudices. Oh, let her fuck with impunity. Will a little false glory, a few frivolous religious anticipations balance the weight of her sacrifices? No! Virtue, vice, all are confounded in the grave. A few years hence, will the public any more exalt the ones than it condemns the others? Why, no! Once again, I say no! And the wretch who has lived a stranger to joy dies, alas, unrewarded.
How thoroughly you persuade me, my angel! What a straight way you make with my prejudices! What short work you make of all the false principles my mother planted in me! Oh, I would be married tomorrow in order immediately to put your maxims into use. How seductive they are! How true! And how much I love them! Only one thing troubles me, dear one. In what you have just said to me, and as I understand it, not at all, I beg you to explain. Your husband, you declare, does not, when he takes his pleasure with you, strike an attitude such as would produce children? What then, pray tell, does he do?
My husband was already advanced in years when I married him. On our wedding night, he gave me notice of his fancies, the while assuring me that, for his part, never would he interfere with mine. I swore to obey him, and we have always, since then, he and I, lived in the most delicious independence and mutual understanding. My husband's whim is to have himself sucked. And here's the most unusual practice joined as a corollary to that one. While, as I bend over him, my
buttocks squarely over his face and cheerily pumping the fuck from his balls, I must shit in his mouth. He swallows it down.
Now there's a most extraordinary notion.
None may be qualified thus, my dear. All are a part of nature. When she created men, she was pleased to vary their tastes as she made different their countenances. And we ought not no more be astonished at the diversity she has put in our features than at that she has placed in our affections. The fancy your friend has just mentioned could not be more a la mode. An infinite number of men, and principally those of a certain age, are prodigiously addicted to it. Would you refuse your cooperation, Eugenie, were someone to require it of you? Eugenie turns red.
In accordance with the maxims with I am being inculcated here, can I refuse anything? I only ask to be forgiven my surprise, and this is the first time I have heard all these lubricities. I must, first of all, try to visualize them. But between the solution of the problem and the execution of the act, I believe my tutors can rest assured there will never be but the distance they themselves impose. However, all that may be, my dear, you won your liberty by acquiescing to this duty.
The most entire liberty, Eugenie. On my side, I did everything I wished without raising any obstacles. But I took no lover. I was too fond of pleasure for that. Unlucky woman. She was attached. She needs but to take a lover to be lost. While 10 scenes of libertinage, repeated every day, if she wishes, vanish into the night. A silence. Instantly they are consummated. I was wealthy. I had young men in my pay. They fucked me incognito. I surrounded myself with charming valets, assured of tasting the sweetest pleasures with me upon condition of discretion. Certain they would be thrown out of doors if they so much as opened their mouths. You have no idea, my dear heart, of the torrent of delights into which in this manner I did plunge. Such is the conduct I will always urge upon every woman who would imitate me. During my 12 years, I have been fucked by upward of 10 or 12,000 individuals, and in the company I keep, I am thought well behaved. Another would have had lovers. By the time she exchanged the first for the second, she would have been doomed.
This seems the safest way of proceeding. Most decidedly, it shall be mine. I must, like yourself, marry a rich man, and above all, one with fancies. But, my dear, your husband is strictly bound by his taste? Does he never ask anything else of you?
Never in a dozen years has he been untrue to himself a single day, save when I am on an outing. A very pretty girl he very much wanted me to take into the house then substitutes for me, and things proceed exceedingly well.
But he doesn't stop there, surely. There are other objects outside the house, competing to diversify his pleasures.
Be certain there are, Eugenie. Madame's husband is one of the greatest libertines of the day. He spends above 100,000 crowns a year upon the obscene tastes your friend described to you but a moment ago.
To tell the truth, I suspect the figure may be higher. But what are his excesses to me, since their multiplicity authorizes and camouflages my own?
I beseech you, let us follow in detail the manners by which a young person, married or not, may preserve herself from pregnancy. For I confess I am made most timorous by dread of it. Whether it be the work of the husband I must take, or the effect of a career of libertinage. You have just indicated one means while speaking of your husband's tastes, but this fashion of taking one's pleasure, which may be highly agreeable to the man, does not seem as pleasurable for the woman. And it is our dalliances, exempt from the risk, I fear, that I desire you to discuss.
A girl risks having a child only in proportion to the frequency with which she permits the man to invade her cunt. Let her scrupulously avoid this manner of tasting delight. In its stead, let her offer indiscriminately her mouth, her hand, her breast, or her ass. The last thoroughfare will yield her considerable pleasure, far more, indeed, than any other. By means of the others, she will give pleasure. In the first instance, that is to say, the one which brings the hand into play, one proceeds in the fashion you observed a short while ago. Eugenie, one shakes one's friend's member as if one were pumping it. After a little agitation, the sperm is emitted. Woo! Meanwhile, the man kisses, caresses you, and with this liquid wets that part of your body whereof he is fondest. If one wishes to have it distributed over the breast, one stretches upon the bed. The virile member is fitted between the two tits. They are compressed, and after a few passes the man discharges so as to flood you sometimes up to the height of your face. This manner is the least voluptuous of all, and can only suit those women whose breasts, from repeated usage, have acquired that flexibility, that looseness needed to grip the man's member tightly when clamped between them. Pleasure, incepted at the mouth, is infinitely more agreeable, quite as much for the man as for the woman. The best way to go about it is for the woman to lie prone, contrariwise to her fucker, and upon his body. He pops his prick into your mouth, and, his head being lodged between your thighs, he repays in kind what you do for him by introducing his tongue into your cunt, or playing it over your clitoris. When employing this attitude, one must show spirit, catch hold the buttocks, and the partner should finger and tickle each other's asshole, a measure always necessary to complete voluptuousness. Spirited lovers, those full of imagination, therewith swallow the fuck, which squirts into their mouths, and thus delicately they enjoy the exquisite pleasure of mutually causing this precious liquid, mechanically diverted from its customary destination, to pass into their entrails.
Eugenie, 'tis a delicious method. I recommend to you its execution. Thus, to cheat propagation of its rights, and to contradict what fools call the laws of nature, is truly most charming. The thighs, the armpits, also provide asylum to the man's member, and offer him retreats where his seed may be spilled without risk of pregnancy.
Some women insert sponges into the vagina's interior. These, intercepting sperm, prevent it from springing into the vessel where generation occurs. Others oblige their fuckers to make use of a little sack of Venetian skin, in the Vulgate called a condom, air quotes, which the semen fills and where it is prevented from flowing farther. But of all the possibilities, that presented by the ass is without any doubt the most delicious. Domanse, to you I reserve the dissertations thereupon. Who better than you might be able to describe a taste in whose defense, were it to require any defense, you would lay down your life?
I acknowledge my weakness. I admit as well that in all the world there's no mode of pleasure-taking preferable to this. I worship it in either sex. But I confess a young lad's ass gives me yet more pleasure than a girl's. Buggers is the appellation designated those who are this fancy's adepts. Now, Eugenie, when one goes so far as to be a bugger, one must not stop halfway. To fuck women in the rear is but the first part of buggery. 'Tis with men nature wishes men to practice this oddity. And it is especially for men she has given us an inclination. Absurd to say the mania offends nature. Can it be so, when 'tis she who put it into our head? Can she dictate what degrades her? No, Eugenie, not at all. This is as good a place to serve her as any other, and perhaps it is there she is most devoutly worshipped. Propagation owes its existence to her forbearance. How could she have prescribed as law an act which challenges her omnipotence? Since propagation is but a consequence of her primary intentions, and since new constructions, wrought by her hand, were our species to be destroyed absolutely, would become, again, primordial intentions whose accomplishment would be far more flattering to her pride and to her power. So, do you know, Dumonse, that by means of this system you are going to be led to prove that totally to extinguish the human race would be nothing but to render nature a service? Who doubts of it, madame? My God! Wars, plagues, famines, murders would be no longer be but accidents, necessary to nature's laws. And man, whether instrumental to or the object of these effects, would hence no longer be more a criminal in the one case than he would be a victim in the other. Victim he is, without doubt, when he bends before the blows of ill fortune. But criminal, never. We shall have more to say about all these things. For the moment, in the lovely Eugenie's behalf, let's analyze sodomistic pleasures, which presently are the subject of our discussion. In this mode of pleasure-seeking, the posture most commonly adopted by the woman is for her to lie belly down upon the edge of the bed, the buttocks well spread, the head as low as possible. After having mused for an instant upon the splendid prospect of a ready and beckoning ass, after having patted it, slapped it a bit, handled it, sometimes after having beaten or whipped it, pinched and bitten it, the rake moistens with his mouth the pretty little hole he is about to perforate, and prepares his entry with the tip of his tongue. In similar wise, he wets his engine with saliva, or with pomade, and gently presents it to the aperture he intends to pierce. He guides it with one hand, and with the other he lays wide open the checks of his delight. Immediately he feels his member penetrate. He must thrust energetically, taking all due care not to give ground. Then it is, occasionally, the woman suffers, if she is new or young, but totally heedless of the pangs which are soon to change into pleasures. The fucker must be lively and drive his engine ahead, inch by inch, gradually, but with determination. To at last, he has arrived at his objective. Till, that is to say, his device's hairs precisely rub the anal rim of the embuggered party. Then he may give free rein to himself. All the thorns are plucked from out his path. There remain roses only there. To complete the metamorphosis into pleasures of what distresses his object still experiences, if it be a boy, let him seize his prick and fling it. Let him twiddle her clitoris. If 'tis a girl, the titillations of the pleasure he will cause to be born will work a prodigious contraction of the patient's anus, and will double the delight of the agent, who, overwhelmed with comfort, will soon dart to the very depths of the ass of his delight. A sperm quite as abundant as thick, thus determined by so many lubricious details. There are some who do not care to have the patient take pleasure in the operation, an attitude we will account for in good time.
Allow me to be the scholar for the moment, and let me ask you, Domonce, in what state the patient's ass must be in order to ensure the agent a maximum of pleasure?
Full, by all means. 'Tis essential the object in use have the most imperious desire to shit, so that the end of the fucker's prick, reaching the turd, may drive deep into it, and may more warmly and more softly deposit there the fuck which irritates and sets it afire.
I fear the patient's pleasure is less.
Anna! This method of pleasure-taking is such that there exists no possibility of the fuckers receiving hurt, nor of the employed object failing to be transported into seventh heaven. No other matches in this value. No other can so completely satisfy each of the protagonists, and they who have tasted of it know a great difficulty in abandoning it for another. Such, Eugenie, are the best ways of taking pleasure with a man, if the perils of pregnancy are to be avoided. For one enjoys, and be very certain of it, not only offering a man one's ass, but also sucking and frigging him, etc. And I have known libertine ladies who often had a higher esteem for this by-play than for real pleasures. The imagination is the spur of delights, and those of this order all depends upon it. It is the mainspring of everything. Now, is it not by means of the imagination one knows joy? Is it not of the imagination that there come the most piquant delights?
Oh, indeed. But let Eugenie beware thereof. The imagination serves us not, save when our mind is absolutely free of prejudices, but a single one will suffice to chill it. This capricious portion of our mind is so libertine, nothing can restrain it. Its greatest triumph, its most eminent delights, come of exceeding all limits imposed upon it. Of all regularity, it is an enemy. It worships disorder, idolizes whatever wears the brand of crime. Whence derived the extraordinary reply of an imaginative woman who was fucking coolly with her husband. Why, this ice, quoth he. Ah, truly, answered this singular creature, 'tis all very dull, what you are doing with me.
I adore that remark. Ah, my dear, how great is my urge to become acquainted with these divine outbursts of a disordered imagination! You never believe it, but during our stay together, since the instant we met, no, my darling, never could you conceive of the voluptuous ideas my brain has caressed. Oh, how well I now understand what is evil, how much it is desired of my heart.
May atrocities, horrors, may the most odious crimes astonish you no more, my Eugenie. What is of the filthiest, the most infamous, the most forbidden? 'Tis that which best rouses the intellect. 'Tis that which always causes us most deliciously to discharge.
To how many incredible perversities must you not, the one and the other, have surrendered yourselves? And how I should relish hearing the details!
Beauteous! Eugenie, 100 times more would I love to see you experience all I should love to do, rather than relate to you what I have done.
I know not whether it would be too good for me to accede to everything.
I would not advise it, Eugenie.
Very well. I spare Domonce his narrations. But you, my dear, pray, tell me what they are, the most extraordinary things you have done in your life.
I engaged 15 men, alone, in 24 hours. I was 90 times fucked. As much before as behind.
Mere debauches! Those, tours de force. I dare wager you have done yet more uncommon things.
I passed a term in a brothel.
And what does that word mean?
Such are called the public houses where, in consideration of a price agreed upon, each man finds young and pretty girls in good sort to satisfy his passions.
And you gave yourself there, my dearest?
Yes, there I was, a perfect whore. There, during an entire week, I satisfied the whims of a goodly number of lechers, and there I beheld the most unusual tastes displayed, moved by a similar libertine principle, like the celebrated Empress Theodora, Justinian's wife. I waylaid men in the streets, upon public promenades, and the money I earned from these prostitutions I spent at the lottery.
My dear, I know that mind of yours. You've gone still further than that.
Were it possible?
Why, yes, and this is how I fancy it. Have you not told me of our most delicious moral sensations come of the imagination?
I did say so.
Then, by allowing this imagination to stray, by according it the freedom to overstep those ultimate boundaries, religion, decency, humaneness, virtue, in a word, all our pretended obligations would like to prescribe to it, is it not possible that the imagination's extravagances would be prodigious?
No doubt.
Well, is not by reason of the immensity of these extravagances that the imagination will be the more inflamed?
Nothing more true.
If that is so, the more we wish to be agitated, the more we desire to be moved violently. The more we must give rein to our imagination. We must bend it toward the inconceivable. Our enjoyment would thereby be increased, made better for the track the intellect follows, and...
Mwah! Delicious. My, but how our little rascal has progressed, and in such a brief space. But do you know, my charming one, that one can go very far by the route you trace for us?
I understand it very nicely. Thus, and since I will subject myself to no inhibitions, you see to what lengths I suppose one may go.
To crime, vicious creature, to the blackest, most frightful crimes.
But you say no crime exists there. And after all, it is but to fire the mind. One thinks, but one does not do.
However, 'tis very sweet to carry out what one has fancied.
Well, then carry it out. Carry it out. Would you not like to persuade me, dear teachers, that you have never done what you have conceived?
It has sometimes been given to me to do it.
There we are.
Ah, what a mind!
What I ask you is this. What have you fancied? And then, having fancied, what have you done?
Someday, Eugenie, I shall relate my life to you. Let us continue our instruction, for you would bring me to say things.
Begone! I see you do not love me enough fully to open your soul to me. I shall wait as long as you say. Let's get on with the particulars. Tell me, my dear, who was the happy mortal who intended at your beginnings?
My brother. From childhood on, he adored me. During our earliest years, we often amused each other without attaining our goal. I promised to give myself to him immediately I married. I kept my word. Happily, my husband damaged nothing. My brother harvested all. We continue with our intrigue, but without hampering ourselves. We do not, he on his part, I on mine, plunge ourselves into anything but the most divide of libertinage's excesses. We even mutually serve one another. I procure women for him. He introduces me to men.
Delightful arrangement. But is not incest a crime?
Might one so regard nature's gentlest unions, the ones she most insistently prescribes to us and counsels most warmly? Eugenie, a moment of reason. How, after the vast afflictions our planet sometime knew, how was the human species otherwise able to perpetuate itself, if not through incest? Of which we find, do we not, the example and the proof itself in the books Christianity respects most highly? By what other means could Adam's family and that of Noah have been preserved? Sift, examine universal custom. Everywhere you will detect incest authorized. Consider a wise law and proper to cement familial ties. If, in a word, love is born of resemblance, where may it be more perfect than between brother and sister, between father and daughter? An ill-founded policy, one produced by the fear lest certain families become too powerful, bans incest from our midst. But let us not abuse ourselves to the point of mistaking our natural law, what is dictated to us only by interest or ambition. Let us delve into our hearts. 'Tis always there I send our pedantic moralists. Let us but question this sacred organ, and we will notice that nothing is more exquisite than carnal connection within the family. Let us cease to be blind with what concerns a brother's feelings for his sister, a father's for his daughter. In vain does one or the other disguise them behind a mask of legitimate tenderness. The most violent love is the unique sentiment ablaze in them, the only one nature has deposited in their hearts. Hence, let us double, triple these delicious incests, fearlessly multiply them, and let us believe that the more straitly the object of our desires does belong to us, the greater charm shall there be in enjoying it. One of my friends has the habit of living with a girl he had by his own mother. Not a week ago he deflowered a 13-year-old boy, fruit of his commerce with this girl. In a few years' time, this same lad will wed his mother. Such are my friend's wishes. He is readying for them all a destiny analogous to the projects he delights in and his intentions. I know very well are yet to enjoy what this marriage will bring to bear. He is young, and he has cause to hope for the best. Consider, gentle Eugenie, with what a quantity of incests and crimes this honest friend would be soiled, were there a jot of truth in the low notion that would have us define these alliances as evil. To be brief, in all these matters I base my attitude upon one principle. Had nature condemned sodomy's pleasures, incestuous correspondences, pollutions, and so forth, would she have allowed us to find so much delight in them? That she may tolerate what outrages her is unthinkable.
Oh, my divine teachers! I see full well that, according to your doctrine, there are actually very few crimes in the world, and that we may peacefully follow the bent of all our desires, however singular they may appear to fools who, shocked and alarmed by everything, stupidly confuse social institutions for nature's divine ordinations. And yet, my friends, do you not at least acknowledge that there exist certain actions absolutely revolting and decidedly criminal, although enjoined by nature? I am nothing loath to agree with you that this nature, as extraordinary in the productions she creates, as various in the pensions she gives us, sometimes moves us to cruel deeds. But if surrendered to depravity, we were to yield to this bizarre nature's promptings, were we to go so far as to attempt, let me suppose, the lives of our fellows, you will surely grant me, at least I do hope so, that such an act would be a crime.
Indeed, Eugenie, little good would it do for us to grant you anything of the sort, destruction being one of the chief laws of nature. Nothing that destroys can be criminal. How might an action which so well served nature ever be outrageous to her? This destruction of which man is wont to boast of, moreover, nothing but an illusion. Murder is no destruction. He who commits it does but alter forms. He gives back to nature the elements whereof the hand of the skilled artisan instantly recreates other beings. Now, as creations cannot but afford delight to him by whom they are wrought, the murderer thus prepares for nature a pleasure most agreeable. He furnishes her materials, she employs them without delay, and the act fools have had the madness to blame is nothing but meritorious in the universal agent's eye. 'Tis our pride prompts us to elevate murder into crime. Esteeming ourselves the foremost of the universe's creatures, we have stupidly imagined that every hurt this sublime creature endures must perforce be an enormity. We have believed nature would perish should our marvelous species chance to be blotted out of existence, while the whole extirpation of the breed would, by returning to nature the creative faculty she has entrusted to us, reinvigorate her. She would have again that energy we deprive her of by propagating our own selves. But what an inconsequence! Eugenie! Indeed! An ambitious sovereign can destroy, at his ease and without the least scruple, the enemies prejudicial to his grandiose designs. Cruel laws, arbitrary, imperious laws can likewise every century assassinate millions of individuals, and we, feeble and wretched creatures, we are not allowed to sacrifice a single being to our vengeance or our caprice? Is there anything so barbarous, so outlandish, so grotesque? And, cloaking ourselves in the profoundest mystery, must we not amply compensate ourselves for this ineptitude, and have revenge?
Oh, yes, of course. But your ethics seduce me, and how I savour the bouquet. Yet, wait, Dalmanse, tell me now, in good conscience, whether you have not sometimes had satisfaction in crime.
Do not force me to reveal my faults to you. Their numbers and kind might bring me excessively to blush. Perhaps someday I'll confess them to you.
Well, guiding the law's blade, the criminal has often employed it to satisfy his passions.
Would that I have no other reproaches to make myself!
Oh, divine man! I adore you! What spirit, what courage! I needed to have tasted every pleasure, as have you. 'Tis to the man of genius only the reserve and the honor of shattering all the links and shackles of ignorance and stupidity. Kiss me! Ooh, you are charming! Mwah!
Be frank, Eugenie. Tell me, have you never wished the death of anyone?
Oh, I have. Yes. There is every day before my eyes an abominable creature I have long wished to see in her grave.
Now, I dare say I have guessed her name.
Oh, whom did you suspect?
Your mother?
Oh, let me hide myself upon your breast.
Voluptuous creature! In my turn, I would overwhelm her with the caresses that should be the reward of her heart's energy and her exquisite mind. Mwah! 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 How do I? Shall we not put this sublime idea into execution?
Eugenie, I detested my mother quite as much as you hate yours, and I hesitated not.
The means have been lacking to me.
The courage, rather.
Alas, still so young.
But, Eugenie, now what would you do?
Everything. Only show me the way, and you'll see.
It will be shown you, Eugenie. I promise it. But thereunto I put a condition.
And what is it? Or rather, what is the condition? Am not ready to accept.
Come, my rascal. Come into my arms. I can hold off no longer. Your charming behind must be the price of the gift I promise you. One crime hast got to pay for another. Come hither! Nay, both, the two of you, run to drown in floods of fuck the heavenly fire that blazes in us!
If you please, let us put a little order in these revels. Measures required, even in the depths of infamy and delirium.
Nothing easier. The major object, so it appears to me, is that I discharge, the while giving this charming girl all possible pleasure. I am going to insert my prick into her ass. Meanwhile, as she reclines in your arms, you will frig her. Do your utmost. By means of the position I place you in, she will be able to retaliate in kind. You will kiss one another. After a few runs into this child's ass, we will vary the picture. I will have you, madame, by the ass. Eugenie, you on top of you, your head between her legs, will present her clitoris to me. I'll suck it. Thus I'll cause her to come a second time. Next, I will lodge my prick in her anus. You will avail me of her ass. 'Twill take the place of the cunt she has under my nose. And now you will have it in the style she will have employed. Her head now between your legs. I'll suck your asshole as I have just sucked her cunt. You will discharge. So will I. And all the while my hand embracing the dear, sweet, pretty little body of this charming novice will go ahead to tickle her clitoris, so that she too may swoon from delight.
Capital, my domancé. But will there be something missing?
A prick in my ass? Madame, you're right.
Let's do without it this morning. We'll have it in the afternoon. My brother will join us, and our pleasures will be at their height. Now, let's to work.
I think I'll have Eugenie frig me for a moment.
That's quite. A bit more quickly. My heart. Rosy head must always be kept naked. Never let it be covered over. The more 'tis kept taut, the more you facilitate the erection. Never, you must never cut the prig, you prick. This way, very well done. Thus, you yourself put into a proper state the member that is to perforate you. Notice how it responds. Get sturdily up. Give me your tongue, little bitch. Let your ass rest upon my right hand. My left goes on to toy with her clitoris.
Eugenie, would you like to cause him to taste the extremest pleasures?
By all means. I wish to do everything to give him then.
Way, then take his prick in your mouth and suck it for a few instants.
Does it? This?
Delicious mouth! What warmth! Worth as much to me as the prettiest ass. Voluptuous, tactful, accomplished woman! Never deny your lovers this pleasure. 'Twill bind them to you forever. Oh, my God! Oh, my God's own fuck!
My, what blasphemies, my friend!
I'll have your ass, madame, if you please. Yes, give it to me. Let me kiss it while I'm sucked, and be not astonished at my language. One of my largest pleasures to swear in God's name when I'm stiff. It seems, then, that my spirit, at such a moment exalted 1,000 times more, abhors, scorns this disgusting fiction. I would like to discover some better way to revile it, or to outrage it further, and when my accursed musings lead me to the conviction of the nullity of this repulsive object of my hatred, I am irritated, and would instantly like to be able to re-edify the phantoms, so that my rage might at least fall upon some target. Imitate me, charming woman, and you will observe such discourses to increase without fail your sensibility. But, by God's very damnation, I say, I've got absolutely, whatever be my pleasure, I've got to retire from this celestial mouth, as I leave my fucking it. That's right. Eugenie! Move! Let's get on with the scene I proposed, and the